Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Seconds until minions spawn.
I do not lack empathy. Other people just need to be better.
Minions have spawned.
This place will be a lovely addition to my empire. The rocks don't like you, the plants don't like you, and I'm pretty sure I don't like you. It's not a ring blade. Light on my life. Just for you. Line them up. I will bend their knees. Things will grow on the graves of my enemies.
First blood. An enemy has been slain.
Of course I've
An
mastered
ally
mine.
has been
I
slain.
just don't like to show up. You know what's hard about being a princess? The best thing about water? My reflection. If they want to worship me, I will not stop them.
An ally has been slain. Enemy double kill.
One throne, 9 sisters. 9 tragic accidents waiting to happen. Someday, all this will be Ishokan, a glorious empire, with an empress to beat. I will grant this place the privilege of being conquered by me. Drown them, freeze them, watch them sink.
enemy has been slain.
A rock? Not idiots, won't you? Keep on way. Oh, Vivo says the real boss needs to be killed. Yes, thank you. We should throw a feast for me. But for me,
Enemy killing
I know.
spree.
Let us crush the enemy. Things do what I tell them to. Right, Rox? The secrets of my enemies carry far on the wind. As the magic forces flow backward, they shout. Has three. Let's see. What can someone do for me? I know. There goes Kiana. She is so much better than Hollow Knight of her sisters. I can't believe she's not our queen. Wet, like the tears of my enemies. He shall die.
An enemy has been slain. You have slain an enemy. An enemy has been slain.
John, I know. This place could use some reshaping. If talent were an element, perhaps I could throw some at them. Ishtal do not live to speak of it. They always said I was cold. Being one in all your enemies' lives. I wish there was someone else as perfect as me. Light on my feet. There will always be someone who is better, and that person is me. It is a travesty to not be carried by servants. Hope you brought a cheat code. We have a great
Shut down. Enemy double kill. An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain. Turret plating will soon fall.
hard way. Some people are just born better.
An enemy is dominating.
No more hiding in the bushes. I demand to be seen. Come, little bot. Where is my royal family? Ishtar, we call them Kaumun. Soon to be mud.
An ally has been slain.
My feet cannot step where lesser beings have tread. Feel it? Some wait their turn, and some take what they deserve. way my entire family will not in the way.
Your team has destroyed a turret. An enemy has been slain.
Empress Kian. I do love the sound of that. The fox. Hard work is rewarded with destiny.
An enemy has been slain.
I stand for the
An ally has been slain.
Chase to your heart's content.
That was no crushing. That was merely a squeeze.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Rock is so common. Just like them. My enemies try their best. Success. My parents rule with fairness and compassion. So boring.
An ally has been slain. Enemy double kill.
I'm not arrogant, I'm right. I do not have. Other things just need to be better.
Enemy killing spree. Your turret has been destroyed.
This place will be a lovely addition to my empire. It's not a winning play. But line them up. I bend their knees. Of course I've mastered fire. I
Enemy
just
killing
don't like
spree.
to show off. Compress! Please hide me from these imbeciles. You know what's wrong about the land knows it's mine. worship me? I will not stop them. Ahem. Everyone, your future empress is leaving. Okay, carry on. One throne, nine sisters, nine tragic accidents. Hello, Kiana Lee. Carry my digital palanquin, would you? Thanks.
Ally has been slain.
I will grant this place the privilege of being conquered by me. Isolated people.
Your turret has been destroyed. You have been slain. Your turret has been destroyed. An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain. Your inhibitor has been destroyed.
Come closer.
Things do what I tell them.
Enemy killing spree. Shut down. Your turret has been destroyed. Defeat.
Are how long is it going to take? How much damage does it deal? And I was mentioning before off camera about the dragons when they first came, the elemental dragons. And I remember trying to do a Cloud Drake when they first came out. I'm like, holy shit,
Chopping you down.
This thing's doing damage. Yeah. This thing is doing damage. And still to this day, actually, especially coaching in bronze, silver, and even gold, even if you set up vision, you swept, it's a lot less threatening than it would be around something like a Baron or a Dragon, just because of, again, how the terrain, right? Think about this. I'm imagining you're sitting somewhere, let's say, I don't know. I don't know specifics, but let's say you're in that kind
I'm
of
envisioning
pit.
bot Tribush.
yeah, bot Tribush, right? There's still so many angles, and again, you still have the lane.
And I
engines
guess
itself.
it's easy to check that with poke abilities anyway.
Again, I think that the real big thing
There's
that
a lot of walls.
I want people to consider here is again how less committed you are into the river here. So look, obviously time will tell how that plays out. We don't know, but I think it's really interesting to see a neutral objective not that deep into the river. So yeah, really really intrigued, exciting, very exciting.
So more things about objectives. You get a upgraded boots, a back. If you remember from, I don't know, season, what was it, six or something like that was the last time the upgraded boots you could buy. You get, only one team can get it, and there's three sort of objectives, I forgot what they're called, mechanisms you can get. There's three different versions. So it's first blood, first tower, and the team that gets the first three epic monsters. So if the first team that gets 2 of 3 of those gets the upgraded boots. And it's pretty nice. It's pretty good. I think the upgrade boots cost like $600.
Oh, 750?
Something like that.
Something like that.
So they're going to be quite valuable. So that's pretty cool. Anything to comment on that code? So again, it's sort of just about objectives, right? Like that's what the game is getting towards and fighting around those.
So again, at a high level though, what my mind comes to is that your champion either needs to thrive in terms of the chaos and the skirmishes. So champions like again, Aurora that have recently been released are going to thrive. Skirmish based mid laners, Ari, Aurora, Galio, these sorts of champions traditionally thrive a lot better. Akali, LeBlanc, these champions from a mid laner's perspective. But even just bigger picture, even you have those traditional skirmishes or champions that can do really, really well at trading off neutral objectives. And can kind of shred towers. So they're the kind of two that, in my mind, at a very basic rudimentary level, might be good. What about junglers?
I don't know. I think that, even champions that are sort of alt-reliant, I still think the way the flow of the game can be, if anything, it puts more structure to the game to save your ults and playing your ults around these fights. I think it actually will be fine. I generally don't think it will just come to... Riot wouldn't let this, where it just comes to the point where you can only play those champions in solo queue,
and
right?
even that is actually something Riot has done very well, by the way. I will say specifically this year. You could basically play any style.
Yeah.
Right? You could play assassins, you could play mages. I mean, in junglers, you could play scaling, and you can play pretty early game. All of them are relatively viable.
Yeah, I mean, Shyvana went through a phase where she was broken for most of this year, and that's a pure ult-reliant champion. So
Karthus.
Yeah.
What do you make of the potential lack of complexity now? I've seen the argument made that League is just turning into a 5v5 game, right? There's no more side laning, no more creative macro plays, just pure 5v5. What do you guys make of that?
This is a very good point. That is a concern. My immediate thing is, Charles, is that, what if playing that mid-game, especially, the 16 to 22 minute mark of, pushing out waves, what if people just stop playing side lanes? The side lane component aspect of the game is so important. Honestly, that's a concern. I have nothing more to say.
I'm actually going to say something very different. I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I don't view League as a strategic game.
I see. You just view it as more a fighting game.
Again, I think that League has always had this kind of veneer of being this strategic macro-oriented kind of game, and that's kind of been that's the old way of thinking. And I think the evolution of the game is that it's become less and less of a strategic game and more of a fighting-based game. And I think for good reason. I think it's genuinely, it's probably suits the more modern age audience, I would say, in a way, or wider audience. So I would say that definitely from a...
You're talking about Zoomers here.
And just comparing it to a lot of other games. You just need action. You need shit to go down. And I will say, I just think that's just the nature of the game. It just does feel weird to have this game where you've got to fight to kill people, but then you've just got to... You're not really going to be interacting with anyone and playing this very wide... I just don't think that it is kind of suited to the MOBA style. At least that's my 2 cents. So look, I get it. I can understand that argument that we're losing the strategic flavor. But the way I view it is that the execution element of the game is so heavy, so dense. We don't need any more complexity from a strategic perspective. It's so difficult already to know which side lane wave to shove or to slow build or to ditch. That's we're not talking very crazy complicated macro.
You think that's enough?
That is already so hard because your mental stack is so overwhelmed. I'm just speaking just from first-hand experience. The decision between do I slow build this? Do I last it? Do I freeze? Do I hard drive? Do I shove and move? Do I stay and cover hover? Or do I group? Or do I not to go to the side? That is not, we're not talking crazy macro, we're not talking like advanced chess strategy. This is just like a very basic decision in terms of what to do with the wave. But that within itself is not an easy decision. So the kind of the way I view it is, League is not difficult from a strategic perspective if we're purely looking at it through the strategic lens, but the burden of execution is so goddamn high that it almost makes the strategy feel more complex than it is. That's kind of the way I view the game. So I think that as long as the game has new champions being added, again, there's new aspects to the map, etc., I don't think we'll ever feel the downside of the game being less strategic. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I can sort of see that. I can definitely see that argument. I guess when you said it, Charles, my first thought is always like, the high level, the pro play. But when Curtis talks about it, it's like, okay, it makes probably more sense for the general player base.
Just think about the general player base. Like, that's, and even at the pro level, by the way, like, look, there is strategy. I'm not going to say there isn't, but it's strategy in a much more subtle way. The strategy actually, in my opinion, the majority of strategy in competitive is just in draft and team compositions. That's where the strategic element of the game actually lies. How do you develop a team composition whereby you're getting an advantage in the way those kits interact, and how do you leverage the advantages of your given your actual composition? That is the strategic element of competitive play, in my opinion. The rest of it is just skirmishing and execution and, tightening up and the consistency of all those details. So, yeah, interesting. Either way, I think a good question.
All right, next change. Nexus turrets can respawn. They respawn every 3 minutes. So if they die, they'll respawn in 3 minutes. What is our immediate reaction to this? How is this going to affect split pushes, Curtis?
Well, again, I think this is alluding to what Charlie was mentioning before. You're kind of lowering, the amount of strategic creativity that can be had, especially in the mid to late game. This one is actually very big. I mean, there's so many games that I'm in, even though it sounds ridiculous. I think there's a lot of games you're in that this is actually quite relevant, where you lose inhibs and then
I can't walk out of my base for, the pressure that you feel. It's just, the Baron's up. I can't walk out of my base. I got to deal with the split pushes.
Well, especially with the amount of split pushes are in the game in top lane, right? There's a shit ton of Fioras.
I think
and
it
Yoriks.
affects top laners the most. Like, it's a pretty reliable strategy to just die for a Nexus tower, respawn, do it again, and then the third time you end the game. So you've seen these games where Yoriks do this, especially in the lower ranks. I see this all the time. Top lane reviews.
Saying that's literally their champion. That's how they win games.
It is how they win their games.
So
like
you're removing
Urgot,
that.
Yorick, Fiora, Alawi. A lot of these champions do it, right? So it will be very interesting to see how they end games.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan, what do you think? Do you feel that this is you? I mean, I don't want you to think about the wider player base. I think this is a very subjective thing, but for you personally, what do you think? How do you like it?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, Curtis, you know me. I'm a jungler that's really focused on the early game, closing out games cleanly. I'm going to close out a game, whether those respawn or not. I can see a couple of games where, maybe the comeback mechanics feels a little bit better, because some games just feel like you can't come back when you lose those Nexus towers against certain split pushes.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
My parents rule with fairness and compassion. So boring.
Minions have spawned.
If talent were an element, perhaps I could throw some at them. I'm not arrogant, I'm right. There are levels to this competition. Better stay on yours. should throw a feast for me. But we'll need something to celebrate. I know. Let us crush the enemy. Bow your head or lose it. There will always be someone who is over, and that person is me.
Delicious.
My feet cannot step where lesser beings have tread.
You have slain an enemy.
In Ishtar, we call them Kaumu, soon to be mud. Let us throw rocks at them and laugh. So, feel this. I will grant this place the privilege of being conquered by me. I hate it when they dare look me in the eye. Those who find Ishtar cannot leave. Drown them, freeze them, watch them sink. I cannot wait to be empress. I'm good long enough for something not in the way.
Outrun a fox. Quick as a fox.
Of course I've mastered fire. I just don't like to show up.
An enemy has been slain.
One throne, 9 sisters. 9 tragic accidents.
Killing spree.
Hard work is for those who possess no talent. Someday, all this will be Ishtar. A glorious legend. Empress feet. Some people are just born better. will be. I demand to be seen. Excuse me? I know what you're thinking. There goes Kiana. She is so much better than all nine of her siblings. I can't ignore her. Rock is so confident, just like them. Line them up. I will bend them.
An enemy has been slain. Double kill.
Yi Shao Gan. They will all learn to say it.
An ally has been slain.
You're safe with me. They always said I was cold. Things do what I tell them to. Right, Rox?
Slain an enemy.
Surprise! Please, I Mini bosses, the real boss needs to be killed. Yes, thank you. Ugh, this place could use some reshaping. Yeah! Yeah! Empress Kiana. I do love the sound
An
of that.
enemy has been slain. Rampage.
Oh, Rob, smash these idiots. Let's see. What can someone do for me?
has destroyed a turret.
If they want to worship me, I will not stop them. This will go on the graves of my enemies. I do not like them. Other people just need to be better. This place will be a lovely addition to my empire.
Shut down.
See, the
An
land is
enemy
known.
has been slain.
I'm getting hot. Where is my royal banner?
You have slain an enemy. You have been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret.
I suppose they will make me do this the hard way. Some wait their turn, and some take what they deserve.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Stone,
Shut down.
foundation of empire. Being young means living to see all your enemies die first. My parents rule with fairness and compassion. So boring.
Enemy killing spree. An enemy has been slain.
Losing is not a green blade.
An ally has been slain.
Idiots. Has
An ally has been slain.
I do look good in green. You know what's hard about being a princess? Nothing. They'll never see me coming. What a shame. If I command the rivers to flow backward, they shall. This is the my enemies try their best.
Enemy double kill.
Did anyone see that? Well, I'll just have to kill them. Let us throw rocks at them and laugh. This will grow on the graves of my enemies. The perfect place to dispose of my enemies. Commanding the
Slain.
Then again, it's so you.
Enemy double kill.
I wish there was someone else as perfect as me.
Slain an enemy.
You are crushed. There will always be someone who is perfect, and that person is me. I hate the River Kiana.
been slain. Double kill. Killing spree.
Finish that with other counters.
Your team has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed a turret. Your team has destroyed an inhibitor. Rampage. Your team has destroyed a turret. Rampage. Your team has destroyed a turret. Shut down. Your team has destroyed an inhibitor. Killing spree. An enemy has been slain. Double kill. Triple kill. Aced.
Those who find Ishtal do not live to speak of it.
A summoner has disconnected. A summoner has disconnected.
Again, this is a thing that I have to see how it plays out, how it feels. But it's interesting.
I would actually say, for me personally, I love it, because the reason why I love it is that I'm always the one, because I'm super disciplined with the way I end games. I wouldn't if I'm in a position. I always say this: if I'm in a position where I can get an inhib or Baron, I'm doing Baron, because the Baron will lead to inhib, and the inhib won't necessarily lead to Baron. Sometimes it can, not always, especially if it's mid inhib.
Mid inhib, yeah.
So I'm I'm super aware of, because I've had so many painful experiences of failing to end a game properly, that I will go out of my way to make sure I end the game properly. So I'm not going to be in a scenario, at least for me, very rarely am I going to be in a scenario where it's like, oh gosh darn it, we needed those Nexus towers to end the game. Like, I'm not going to be in a scenario where I have to, like, I need
That's
to
right.
leverage that to win the game, just because that's my strength as a player. And if anything, I'm going to be on the other side needing those Nexus towers to respawn, so I can leverage again my strategic, like my strengths as a player, to keep the game on going, and then find picks and get a creative way back into the game. So I think for me, because I'm disciplined with ending games, I think this benefits me as a player.
Yeah, I guess it depends on role. Top laners, not happy. Now that you say put it that way, I'm pretty happy with it.
Or again,
As a
think about it,
jungler.
if you're a tank player, or you're a player that tends to group and
Wait,
play more team fight oriented
Oh,
games,
yeah.
you're probably happy
So
with this change.
Kiara is
If you're
married.
a
I'm
split
sorry,
pusher,
you had to find out this
then
way, but
God damn
you're
it.
adopted.
You know, this is definitely not good.
I will
Yes,
say,
but we
I
love you.
actually-
We both
thinking about
love you
this
very
more,
much.
If you get Baron,
Yes.
and you
yes.
have a triple inhib,
I'm sorry.
and you run into the
No,
enemy
don't be
base and you
sad.
Baron up all three
Is
waves,
married
it
to-
doesn't really
It
matter
doesn't matter.
whether they have next to
Actually,
the
uh,
person or
Spawn or not, right?
complicated.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No.
yeah.
But what it does mean is that team can probably
I mean,
leave the base
Don't
to
go
Does
there.
that
test the
mean
Baron.
technically?
Maybe.
To not get that
Technically.
point.
I mean, technically speaking.
It does reward what
Mother,
it does, if you think about it, right?
don't
Let's
cheat
say you
on mommy.
defend your base. Let's say you get siege on, you lose your inhibs. And they get your Nexus towers, and you ace them at the Nexus. And then and then you know how typically then the game stalls out because they can't end the game, and then like you've cleared out all the minions, and then they have to wait for the next Baron. You're right. It helps that then because that you should be rewarded for defending your base there. Think about
That's the reward.
it.
Yeah,
That's
makes
the reward.
sense.
And now you're gonna
I feel like I'm not rewarded for that. Yeah, it's
you're
a
not
good
rewarded.
point.
It's weird because you're just going to slowly lose the
Yeah.
game anyway,
Yeah.
right? Because they're going to get the next rotation of the Baron, which you're never going to be able to contest because the end you have no Nexus towers. So it actually gives you kind of that second chance in the game. I think, yeah, really, really good point, Charles. I like it.
All right, next one here, talking more about top laners. We've got teleport changes. Teleport, I swear, gets changed every 3 months, honestly, at this point. First one, it turns into you turn like into a ball, so it went from a blink to like I don't know what you call it, a dash. You turn into like a ball. The change says the channel duration is reduced from 4 seconds to 3 seconds. Now dashes the target to the location after the channel instead of blinking like hex gates. Max travel time for base is 5 seconds. 4 for unleashed. Can target minions and wards again.
Can target minions and wards again.
I think that means for the initial because unleash you could do that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Wow,
there must be
interesting.
what was that like? So that was
the old school.
where they could TP to body stuff. Is it gonna come back? Wait, you know when top laners could
Yeah.
TP to like bot.
Or actually, it was really OP back in the day because what you could do, you could not only TP to a minion, but you could cancel it. But now remember, you have to go
Yeah,
through with it, right?
yeah.
So now, and from what that post looks like, is that they are they're bringing it back such that you can target the non-unleashed one.
You can target minions.
You can target minions and wards. again,
Very
which
interesting.
Which is, when you think about it, it's not. Okay, so it is impactful, definitely, but not game changing. Because think about it, when you're actually going to be able to do that, or when it's relevant, is when you're level 6, right? Mid lane. I'm just again speaking from a solo laner's perspective. You're not really going to be TPing pre-level 6 to a minion. Actually,
I mean, that was the case. That
that
meta,
was the case.
I had to deal with that.
well, that does actually no. What it okay. So there's two main functions of TP.
Can we just confirm that, Charles? By the way, can you look that up?
Yes, I am looking
you
that up
confirm
at
that?
the
But in the
moment.
meantime, if you think about TP now, right, the main way in the early game that is used is to get back to lane, right? Now, when they made it only to the towers and not minions, that actually made it harder, specifically for top laners, to get back in lane in time, such that sometimes they wouldn't be able to freeze the wave. So it actually made it hard. It made it easier for the opposition to punish people who were TPing back to lane, right? So for top lane, that is actually very significant. If you can TP to a ward, sometimes, or a minion, you can get there in time, hold the wave and pull the wave and prevent it from crashing onto the tower. Even just like 1 or 2 seconds or 3 seconds difference can change that altogether. So for lane now, that actually is very significant. The second one for TP is you would use it for, obviously, for counter ganks and shit like that, which wasn't really relevant now when they were for pre-unleashed TP, right? Because you couldn't go to the minion.
Yeah, you can't TP the tower and go to the fight.
Exactly right. But now,
What's
So
that,
Charles?
Charles?
Okay, we've got some information here. So it's quite interesting because the teleport takes a very long time to arrive. And that's how they've justified allowing you to TP to minions
I
and wards,
see.
because you're going to have like 7 seconds to respond. Because what happens is, because let's say you teleport to bot, which is the most obvious one, right? You have your channel time, which I think it said it was 4 seconds channel time.
Or 3.
3 seconds channel time. But now you have the channel time plus the
Oh, the
travel.
travel.
So the travel time from top to bot is
It's
going to
so-
be 5 seconds.
Yeah,
So if
okay.
you want to TP flank bot, they're literally going to see it and have 8 seconds to walk away.
Okay, that was my concern.
So it
Yeah.
balances it out.
Yeah,
Okay, so that also makes sense for the top lane TP thing as well.
So what they've
yeah.
said is they really don't want TP to be a tool where you just TP back to lane. They hate that. They don't want it to be like a get out of lane free card or whatever. They want you to impact the map, but they want that to happen later. So like the further away you TP, the longer it's going to take. That's what I mean. But you can only get cancelled in the first half of the channel. Once you start flying through the air, you can't get cancelled anymore. You're
because
like
the
locked in.
channel's short, right?
The
It's like
channel's
3
shorter,
seconds,
but
yeah.
the travel time depends on how far you go.
Okay, I can see the theory here. This makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does
I
make
actually
sense.
like this change a lot. So yeah, so basically, if you're TPing from the other side of the map, it's super easy to react to. But if like the way I think about the TP, it's like the top laner might be hiding out of fog of war behind the fight or whatever, right? And gets there really quick, for a flank or something like that. But they have to be closer. You can't just be on the other side of the map. I think that's overall a fantastic.
What it
change.
says is
It adds
this is-
more strategic.
There's more strategic there.
it wants you to incentivize laners to stop taking teleport every single time, so that the time it takes to walk back to lane and TP back to lane is more similar. So like, because what happens a lot, just again speaking from a top lane perspective, this is the top lane podcast, is if you take ignite and you solo kill your laner,
They're gonna come
in
back.
some lane states it can be a bad solo
It's
kill
bad, yeah.
because
Even
they
in
TP
mid.
back and freeze.
That's legit in mid as well, though. In
Yeah.
mid, if you're playing, I've seen this so many times where like a Diana, they like solo kill their laner, and then the enemy just TP's back, and you can't get the wave out. Like that actually happens in
all
mid.
the time in top lane. Like if you commit your flash ignite as a Garen to kill the guy, they TP back and freeze the wave, and you've low
Yeah,
HP.
as a jungler, I have to always go to fix that. Like, even though my laner solo kills, they're in such a bad spot. I have to always go there as a jungler. It happens all the time.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of data here. I mean, obviously a lot of this is just going to have to be field out, but there's a lot of interesting stuff. A lot of
Well,
stuff.
also, by the way, the base. If you go back to that, Nathan, the base cooldown reduced from 6 minutes to 5 minutes. By the way,
That's
and
big.
then the unleash cooldown was reduced as well by about 30 seconds on the initial one. So, yeah, so that's actually quite significant as well. So again, it is one of those things I'll have to feel out. I can kind of see where they're coming from. It definitely adds another level of. You need to be much more conscious about taking TP, which, if you think about it historically, that's kind of the direction that they've gone. Like, at the start, everyone was taking TP, right? Originally, because you could cancel it, you could go on anything. It was basically super low channel time and everything.
I mean, nowadays, I see 3 TPs in a lot. I've got a Ziggs with TP
Bot
bot,
goes bot, yeah.
mid TP and top TP nowadays.
TP is actually a very big reason as to why Mage is a viable bot lane, by the
Yeah.
way. So that could change quite a bit. Like, I don't know if I'd want to be playing Ziggs bot lane with Barrier.
Yeah,
That's
no,
a very
totally.
good point.
It's actually really, really important, because I play a lot of Ziggs. I played a lot of Major Spot and Ziggs Spot specifically. If you don't have TP, it's really hard, because you need that first reset, because you got and you need to come back, get that tier, or just get some sort of mana, or get that first reset off, and then that kind of bridges the gap to get you to your lost chapter a lot of the time. So if you don't have TP, it hurts. And now, look, you probably are still going to have to take TP. It's just going to be a little bit easier to get punished, right? So yeah, very interesting.
The next change I wanted to talk about here, well, the last one, was they're introducing multiplayer practice tool. Now, this was a big gripe in the community for a long time. It was just sort of just annoying. It's that you couldn't go into the practice tool and just train with someone, right? Like, that's, you know, dodge skill shots. Can you do this? Can you get to this level? I want to see this damage. You can actually, like, this is, I think this is, could be quite big. Let's sort of explore this. Okay, the first question I want to ask to you guys, when practice tool was initially released, do we think that the player base was improved significantly? Like, were people able to practice the Gragas? I think about like the Gragas flashy combo, or the Lee Sin, you know, insect and stuff like that. Did the practice tool? I just don't think that. Okay, let's differentiate between pro play and also regular play. Do you think it helped increase the mechanics of players? And did you see people use it, or do you
I mean,
think?
I don't think you can even make that argument, even if I said, yeah, like, how, right? Because there's so many other variables that play.
Like the time people got better at the
Yeah,
game.
there's more educational
Could have had
resources.
My parents rule with fairness and compassion. So boring. I hate it when they dare look me in the eye. I'm getting hot.
Has been slain.
Some people are just born better.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain.
I command the rivers to flow back. They shall. My feet cannot step where lesser beings have stepped. Stone. Nation of empire. me from these imbeciles. One throne, 9 sisters. 9 stripes.
You have slain an enemy.
There will always be someone. And that person.
Slain.
Perfect place to dispose of my food.
Killing spree. An ally has been slain. Enemy double kill.
Line them up. I will bend their knees. Some wait their turn, and some take what they deserve. Ah, this place could use some reshaping. In Ishtar, we call them counters. So many rocks, so many enemies. Here's some advice. Quick!
Rampage.
Let us throw rocks at them and laugh. I do not lack empathy. Other people just need to be better.
Killing spree.
Empress, yeah. I do like the sound of that.
Shut down. An enemy has been slain.
Evo says, the real boss needs to be carried. Yes, thank you. Oh, Rob. Idiots, won't you? I know what they are thinking. There goes Kiana! She is so much better than all 9 of her sisters. I can't believe she's not our queen. For crushing.
An ally has been slain.
If they want to
Unstoppable.
I will not
Shut down. Shut down.
enemies try their best. That is what is so sad. Climb here. Dare you?
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Turret plating will fall soon. Enemy rampage.
Let's see. What can someone do for me? I have a message for you to prevent everyone from. I cannot wait to be Empress. See, the land knows it is mine. I wish there was someone else as perfect as me. Those who find Ishtal do not live to speak of it. It's not a ring blade, even on that, idiots.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Things do what I tell them to. Right, Rocks? I do look good on green.
An ally has been slain.
Someday, all this will be Ishatan. A glorious emperor. With an empress to feed.
Killing spree.
Of course I'd not be fine. I just don't like to show off. Hard work is for those who possess no talent. I'm not good at weapons. everyone see that? Well, I'll just have to kill them. The secrets of my enemies carry far on the wind. They'll never see me coming. What a shame. I demand to be seen.
Enemy killing spree.
This place will be a lovely addition to my empire.
An ally has been slain.
This storm of fate is my enemy. If I command the rivers to flow backwards, they shall. So many rocks, so many enemies. Being young means living to see all your enemies die first. Foundation of empires. You know what's hard about being a princess? Nothing. My parents rule with fairness and compassion. So boring.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Look around. So many ways to kill.
Your team has destroyed a turret. You have been slain. Ally has been slain.
That was no crushing. That was merely a Oh, Brass, please hide me from these imbeciles. I hate it when they dare look me in the eye. born better.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
He Shao Gan. All her things. My feet cannot step where lesser beings have tread. One throne, 9 sisters. 9 tragic accidents waiting to happen.
Enemy has been slain. Has been slain.
Always be someone who is line them up. Some wait their turn, and some take what they deserve.
An enemy has been slain. Shut down. Killing spree.
This place will
Your team has destroyed a turret. Shut down. Your turret has been destroyed.
Suppose they will make me do this the hard way.